Hello everyone, I'm Greg York.
I'm Tom Taylor.
Is ethanol from corn bad for the climate?
You know what? That's what we're here to find out. Alright, when considering the production of ethanol, there's one extremely important finite resource that you have to consider, and that's the use of water. We've looked at a recent publication from the Environmental Science and Technology Journal from a few biosystems engineers from the University of Minnesota. The numbers were kind of staggering. They actually say that in order to go from growing the crops to producing ethanol, it could use up to 2,100 times the amount of water per unit to produce 1 unit of ethanol. So around like a ton of water to produce a pound of ethanol, essentially. The conversion of corn into ethanol is fairly easy and doesn't use that much water, about 3 times per unit the amount of water for a unit of ethanol produced. The good things and the bad things about this are going to be, A, it's going to bring jobs and money into the American economy because it's easy to grow corn here and a lot of people can do it and a lot of people are doing it.
The next topic we wanted to consider was transportation. We had a difficult time quantifying or comparing oil to ethanol production. How could we compare like the oil required or the amount of fossil fuels necessary and emissions produced by those fossil fuels from the oil being taken out of the rig transportation to the refinery to the tanker across the Atlantic to the U.S. While after it gets to the U.S., it has to be unloaded from the tanker and into the distribution center, and the distribution center would be loaded onto all those 18-wheelers and shipped to your local gas station. Comparing that to the acres and acres and acres of corn fields required to produce the necessary ethanol to be incorporated into a more sustainable fuel, where tons and tons of different tractors and all the machinery required to plant and harvest the cornfields. It was difficult for us to quantify which would produce more emissions, one giant trip across the Atlantic or millions of small tractors.
Next, we wanted to talk about the pros and cons, strictly about ethanol. Starting with the pros, no special car is required. Any car can use approximately 10% as high as 15% ethanol mixed into your regular gasoline. Next, it's relatively inexpensive to produce, meaning that if once the corn is to the refinery, the process of taking the corn and turning it into ethanol that can be used in your car is not a difficult or expensive process. Another pro is that it can be locally grown and manufactured. A cornfield is much easier to establish than finding an oil cavity under the ground. Lastly, lubricity, meaning that this is in regards to your car engine, and it's actually shown that it improves the lubricity of your car engine and can prevent help boost engine knocking. Moving on to the cons. Ethanol is not as efficient a fuel as gasoline, meaning that 1 gallon of ethanol will not take you as far as 1 gallon of gasoline. Next, corn converted into ethanol is primarily established in the Midwest. Therefore, on the East and West Coasts, it's much more expensive and less readily available. Another con would be the acreage. It's going to take tons and tons of acres of fields of corn to produce ethanol, the ethanol required to make a significant difference in making the world more sustainable. Finally, as I talked about the pro, that it was relatively inexpensive, you have to have tons of it to make any significant difference, and ultimately I think that those are going to outweigh the inexpensive refining. Finally, also, in regards to acreage, being that so much acres is going to be required, it's going to replace some of the land available for other foods that we use, not primarily just for ethanol production, but the foods that we actually consume.
All right. Another important aspect of this is when thinking about ethanol, it brings up the question, is there a future in ethanol? We strongly feel that there are small technological problems that have to do with harvesting and converting an actual like food or corn into a fuel. The biggest problem that we face is the fact that it's not very high energy output, and like Greg was saying earlier, 1 gallon of ethanol won't go as far as 1 gallon of gasoline. So I feel like if there was some way to where we could genetically enhance or restructure the DNA sequencing for the actual corn and grow newer corn plants that might actually not even require the same amount of water intake to grow, then we could possibly turn this potentially dwindling resource or idea into one of the best things that have happened by making it higher energy output, lower water intake.
With the world becoming more and more environmentally conscious, new sustainability ideas are becoming very popular in today's economy. Is one of these ideas going to radically change how the world functions? Is it gonna fix all our problems? No, not one specific thing. It's going to have to be a combination of many things, and ethanol produced from corn is definitely one of those things. However, it does have quite a few cons, but with more research put into it, it can certainly be improved and be in the right applications, be something that can help communities, help jobs, and make our climate more sustainable and more environmentally friendly by lowering carbon emissions.
That's right. And also, in light of recent discoveries in articles, we now know that it's not that it takes water to grow any kind of plant. But is ethanol going to be the cure-all for the carbon emissions of our generation? I don't think so. But is it a step in the right direction? We feel that it is. You decide.